This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast Season 16, Episode 37. Adam Collins with you, and next to me is Geoff Lemon in my kitchen in London, a place we've recorded many times before. You're off the plane yesterday, you're here for a couple of weeks, and we're straight into our work. Hello.
It's kind of strange to be sitting next to you, to be in the same place again, which we haven't been since I don't even remember Australia.
We were last together
during
we did a little bit of the T20 World Cup when I was in the States.
America.
Which I don't think we did a lot of daily shows.
We did a few. We did a few in New York City.
Yeah, we did a few bits and
Long
pieces.
Island,
But it was more we didn't do any of the weekly programs then. I think we found other ways around that. But anyway, still, we get a chance to do a couple of weeks of shows side by side, which is great. And then we'll be together again from the I think the 20th of November or something like that, through the Australian summer. So that's what we're doing logistically. You're here doing the England-Australia White Ball Series, the ECB September Cash Cow Series. It's like the old Channel 7 David Koch Cash Cow just comes out, and we can sell at some venues, so we must.
Why not? People will go. People will still go. I'll be interested to see whether they're actually sellouts or whether they're.
I think they are.
Sporadically.
There'll be sellouts at the usual venues, but and we'll inject our own energy into those through the daily shows. It'll be Geoff plus friends for them, whoever you can corral along the way to stand next to you for 20 minutes at the end of those white ball games starting. When's the first one? Where's
Tomorrow.
The first one? Tomorrow.
Southampton, Wednesday.
We actually got news on that before, which I meant to put into the show notes but forgot to. So there's 3 debutants for England. Jacob Bethel, who I'm very interested to see go about his work for the first time, out of Warwickshire. Young bloke who whacks it, who bowls left arm spin, and is a great fielder. We saw that in the blast over the last couple of years. Jordan Cox, who came ever so close to a test debut a fortnight ago, who'll be playing in the T20s, and so will Jamie Overton, who hasn't played a T20 for England. Of course, made a test debut a couple of years ago, famously making 97 on debut, but having gone through quite a bit with his body. Back injuries and myriad other problems, he'll get another chance in England colours. So you'll see a few of the younger blokes, generation next of England, along with a few of the Aussie guys. They're sort of more the senior players are more rocking up for the one days, aren't they?
Yeah, it's whether I don't know if we have an 11 for Australia yet, probably not. But Cooper Connolly's the main one to keep an eye on, who's just turned 21, made his first class debut in the Shield final and won that for WA. Yep. Played the Big Bash final. That was his 4th Big Bash game. So and dominated that as well and won them that. So he's had a habit of being able to deliver under pressure. And so I expect we'll see him. Big game players step up in September. That's kind of the side of the world I feel like we should be on in Australia at the moment with Hawthorn, our remarkable run, continuing with a big win over Footscray, and of course Geelong pumping Port Adelaide in the first final. So in turn, we have Port on Friday night, and as we foreshadowed last week, the only way Hawthorn plays Geelong now is if we are playing on the final Saturday in September. I've rationalised that I can't go back for the prelim, as much as I wish to go back if we get, I can go full Jack Ginnivan and say it's inevitable that we'll be in the prelim against Sydney, but we've got our final word game on the 20th, which is difficult for me to miss, and also in reality difficult for me to be away from the family for 3 or 4 extra days. So, but if we do win the prelim, I'll be on the first flight back to Melbourne, so to speak, on the Sunday, I guess it would be, and on it would go. So that's an exciting prospect for later in the month. I didn't think I'd be saying 3 months ago that a Hawthorn grand final was in the offing, and it's not yet. But it could be, and that's bloody exciting. Well, nothing is impossible yet. That's the important thing. The grand final's in between 2 of the ODIs, one day either side, so that doesn't make it very convenient. I won't be watching them. No, I don't know that a lot of people in Australia will, and I think that's fine. Maybe they will if there's like a Jake Fraser-McGurk blow-up, or somebody goes absolutely wild in one of the games that might draw some attention. But I think they're for an English audience, and that's fine. They haven't played that much white ball cricket, England and Australia, in the last few years. I know we have this idea that they're just playing each other all the time, but they've only played a couple of series, and those have been 3 games apiece. So it's not. It's the Tim Payne series in 2018 is the last time they played a longer one-day series in England. Right. So I think it's fine, broadly speaking. I think it's easy to be dismissive that it's pointless, and everything's pointless fundamentally, isn't it? Life is pointless if you want to look at it that way, but we can still have a good time doing it.
The other, well, I mentioned footy a moment ago. The other thing I wanted to note on that was that Pat Cummins, the Australian Test and one-day captain, he was out there supporting Sydney against GWS the other night and sat next to our colleague Braden Ingram, who first toured with us in 2015 from Channel 9. That was the highlight for me, is that I don't know how the fetus ended up sat next to Pat Cummins with the Sydney. I mean, Braden's a proper Sydney supporter, not one of the ones that requires the lyrics to the song on the scoreboard. I used to find that very amusing when I'd go to watch Hawthorn play Sydney in the early 2000s, that they didn't know for sure that they would know the words to the song. But Braden's not one of them, and he was there next to Pat.
He's also a well-credentialed TV news reporter.
Sure,
these days. He's
a proper. No, Braden's
accelerated.
Proper. Yeah. He's.
But we have a soft spot for him because he threw himself into that tour in the way that we used to, which was just basically pay his own way and make sure that he got there in order to do whatever work he could find.
Oh, he made a massive loss on that. I think he made like $2,000 for the whole Test series, but needed to be here, and hopefully he ends up back on the cricket beat at some stage. Geoff, we've got quite a bit to get through, mostly international cricket today, little bit of domestic stuff towards the end. We go around the world in the usual way that we will on this show.
Yep.
Just want to start with
housekeeping thing before we do that. So some people listening to the show, depending where you are, you might get some ads popping up for BetterHelp. This is an interesting one, which some people don't like. I looked into this very extensively before we did it. Basically, on this show, we don't need to take advertisers. We don't have to, if we don't think that what they're doing is something that's worthwhile, then we don't do it. Like that's been our method from the start. I looked into this pretty extensively, and it seems like mostly when there's criticism about it, because it's a network that connects people with therapists, it's people who haven't had a good experience with a particular therapist and they haven't liked the service that they got. I looked into this and thought, when I was trying to find a therapist, this is the most difficult bit. It's the most challenging thing of trying to deal with mental health, is trying to find the right person who can actually help you. And you can find people who don't help you through any other method as well. I went through 7 different therapists before I found one who was any good to me whatsoever. So I thought that a service like this, while it might not have a perfect strike rate, because nothing ever will, if there's something that can help connect people with a mental health professional, then I think that's broadly a good thing. I think that's better than not having the alternative to do it. And if it helps people for whom that might be a blockage, who might not otherwise get access to the help that they need, then I think, broadly that was something that I wanted to support. So we thought about it a lot. We discussed it a lot to make sure that we thought that it was something that fitted with what we were trying to do. And ultimately the position we came to was, it may not be perfect, but I think it is fundamentally a better thing than not having the option at all. Yeah, and you'll hear those ads that'll play occasionally at the start of the show. Speaking of advertisements, I neglected to mention off the top that this show's brought to you by Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. As we get into the main agenda items of the day, we'll start here in the UK, where England lost the third and final test of their Sri Lanka series. Perhaps more important than the result in all of that was the news, I felt this anyway, that Mark Wood has got this serious elbow problem that's returned for him. He had that elbow operation in 2022. They're describing it as bone stress. Such rubbish timing, because it felt like whenever we saw Mark Wood in Test cricket, especially in the Ashes last year and the couple of Test matches he played this summer, he's never been quicker and never been more exciting. And now he's been ruled out until at least the Champions Trophy and maybe some of those one-dayers that England will play in India in the lead up to that. And he's 35 in January, so my overarching hope is that he still has one last hurrah as a Test player. It's improbable that he'll have 5 more years, but if he can be in Australia in 15 months' time and be as quick and as good as we know he can be, that'll make that series an awful lot more interesting than if he's not there. Much, much more interesting. It's always been the issue with this England forward planning thing when they're talking about Australia is what feels like about the last 5 Ashes series they've been going, well, if Mark Wood's fit, and it just hasn't worked out. When he did play last time, it was brilliant. He was there in that last series and certainly had his moments along with Nathan Lyon trying to hook him out the ground at Hobart and all the rest of it. So I just think building a plan around the possibility of him being there is a pretty insubstantial plan. It's not necessarily built on strong foundations.
So they are, you could say, diversifying their interest, England. So we've learned a bit more.
Playing every quick they can find in the white ball stuff. They've got John Turner in there. They've got Ollie Stone in there.
Well, Stone's come in because they're resting Atkinson, which even that I find interesting, that Atkinson starts the summer having only played white ball games for England, never having played a test match. And by the end of the summer, his stocks are so increased in value that he's the precious commodity. He's the one being rested, and Ollie Stone's getting that chance. That was the low-key good news story for England in the last 2 weeks, that Stone's returned to Test cricket and looked really good in the first innings of both the Lord's Test and the Oval Test match. They also tried out Josh Hull at the Oval, and look, my instinct watching him is that he's not going to be ready to play in an Ashes series in 15 months' time, but he's won himself a spot on the plane to Pakistan. We've just got through the news of the England squad for Pakistan, a group of 17. So included within that are a whole bunch of guys that went to Pakistan when they won 3-0 there in 2022. That includes Jack Leach, who's back having spent a summer in the wilderness with Shoaib Bashir overtaking him. Rayan Ahmed gets another opportunity as well. All the usual suspects are there. Jordan Cox, who we mentioned a moment ago, goes as the spare batter. And Bryden Cass, having made his return to professional cricket after his suspension, he's been brought straight back into the England squad. And then players like Crawley and Stokes, the captain Stokes, who have been injured in the last few weeks, they're expecting they'll be fit in time for that series in Pakistan in October and November.
He's at least guaranteed to become rhyming slang and give him a kick up the Bryden Cass in years to come, even if he doesn't add tremendously to his tally of England games.
So just on what they've been trying to do in the wash up of the summer, there is good bits to it, I think, for England. If you zoom out, had you said 2.5 months ago you're going to really find one in Jamie Smith. Now, anyone that's watched Jamie Smith felt that way, that this is inevitable for him, but he's reinforced that he's a 10-year banker in this England team. And mentioning Atkinson before, hadn't played a test. And having done what he's done numerically, but also the presence that he's had as at times the attack leader. It's felt like he's been in the attack leader more often than not when taking the new ball. So they're big wins for England, but it's a completely different type of challenge in Pakistan. Obviously, it goes without saying. There were some reports during the week that they may not even get to Pakistan, that there could be a move to send the series to the UAE on account of the fact that they're upgrading their stadia for the Champions Trophy. But the PCB have tried to knock that one on the head. Moshe Naqvi, the chairman, I was surprised to see him quoted, because I assumed he would have been one of the myriad Pakistani officials to have been turned over in the last 6 months, but he's still there. There was a great piece from Osman Samiuddin on Cricinfo that documented just how many people have hit the fence.
23 selectors.
Since August.
4 chief executives.
That's it. So since August 21, 4 chairs, 8 head coaches on the men's side, 5 chief selectors and 23 selectors overall, 3 captains. And what do you know, another internal review that's being commissioned at the moment. I suppose we'll report more on that as we learn more about it, but it's going to include a connection camp with all the big dogs, with the express aim of being less shit.
Okay.
So at least I know what they want at the end. They want the men's team to be less shit.
What happens at the Pakistan team connection camp? What do they do? They sit around the campfire, they roast some marshmallows, they go, okay, guys, here's what's happened. We've been pretty shit. And that has been borne out in the losing of games. And what we'd like to do is lose less often. And win more often. We'd like to turn that around. And then they all, do a chant over the fire or something? Do they build a smoke lodge? Do they carry some heavy logs up to the smoke lodge?
Reminds me of that away day in the thick of it with the Conservative ministers and throwing the ball around, suggesting their best policy ideas, and it all being completely fucking chaotic. I can see some yes and ho for those who follow that show in this as well. I feel sorry for Gary Kirsten and Jason Gillespie being there at the moment. They won't see it that way. If they feel sorry for themselves, they're on a hiding to nothing. But
sure.
That's
how
the
much road have
there.
they got there? How many more tests do they lose?
Well,
before
I think this is going to be huge for Gillespie. I think this England series will be big. I think if they do poorly there, as ridiculous as it is, given that he took over 5 minutes ago, there'll be internal pressure. They did lose 3-0 last time, and just on that England squad, brushed over the fact that Leach is back, but good on him for going back to county cricket. Took 12 wickets last week for Somerset in a match-winning effort, which had put them to within a game of top spot with Surrey, and they're playing each other at the moment. So We won't do a full county wrap because it doesn't quite work. We're only a day and a half into the county round this week. But the very fact that they're within a puncher's chance is in no small part due to Jack Leach. So good on him for getting back in the Test side. And interesting they've included Josh Hull. Surely he's not playing in Pakistan. Like, I mean, if it was horses for courses, Ollie Robinson would be back in because Robinson was outstanding in Pakistan a couple of years ago with the reverse swinging ball and the extra height and the release point stuff that we've heard so much about in recent weeks with Hull having a
could
lower
also
release
carry
point.
his own groceries to the car a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if he can now.
Well, I think the Robinson in Pakistan 22 postdates the trouble that he had when he looked very unfit in Australia. But still, and I don't think Robinson was in the frame, by the way.
But that comes back during the India series, and that's effectively why they've jettisoned him.
Yeah.
Is that they can't trust him to get through a test match.
Yeah, I suppose that's right. So, the England team over there. No Will Jacks either, who played test cricket. I thought he might be a chance to make the side. And the other player I've been looking for here and looking down the page, Dan Lawrence. Dan Lawrence has been omitted. So that's actually the main news now that I look at it more closely, that Lawrence, having been opening the batting, we all thought that he might get a chance in Pakistan batting number 6 and bowling some spin. Well, he's been left out of the squad altogether. And that's because Sri Lanka never gave him a chance when opening. They were terrific. They bowled really well to Lawrence and made him, I was going to say made him play poor shots. I mean, a number of the ways he got out demonstrates that he may not have the concentration to open at test level, and that's okay. Not everyone does. It's a specialised position. He's never done it before. Well, he has. He did it for Essex a little bit, but doing it at the top level is a whole other thing. But, I think in all the effort to decry the England loss and the fact that we were playing Test cricket in September, whisper it, we almost always do, and all the culture war stuff around the 100 and scheduling.
3 Ashes tests in September in 19, didn't we?
Well, I mean, we certainly. Well, I don't know whether
them. Old Trafford.
Well, I guess that's because the World Cup was first, but the 2005 Ashes finished on the 16th of September, and that's well before the 100 started. And that seems to be the causal link people are drawing. There's Test cricket in September because of the 100. Well, yeah, the schedule's different because of the 100, and August is occupied by that tournament. But the very idea of September not being a cricket month, saw a bit of this yesterday as well around the championship. As far as I know, there's always been championship cricket played fairly deep into September, certainly as long as I've been following it. Anyway, it's by the by. But, Sri Lanka getting that win, we had this conversation about Bangladesh last week. It's going to take a lot. But
are you plotting a final,
route
for them?
Now Pathum Nissanka has demonstrated that he is the man for all seasons. That wonderful 127 not out after the rapid 50 in the first innings and becoming their most important player. If he can keep it going,
and Kamindu Mendes doing it again in the first innings.
Kamindu Mendes was crucial. That partnership with Dan and Jay. I was there at the Oval on Saturday afternoon when they'd lost 4 for 15 or something like that, and they were on the cusp of completely losing their shit, and they were galloping to another loss.
He's played 6 test matches. He's got 4 50s and 300s. So he's got 7 scores over 50 in 10 innings.
10 innings, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm looking forward to when he hits 20 innings.
It's one of the best 50-plus conversion rates ever.
Well, yeah, when he hits 20 innings and he's an official cricketer, according to Cricinfo, statistically, that'll be worth looking at again. But in order for South Africa to make that Sri Lanka to reach the World Test Championship final, I'm just going to pace it out to you. Okay. They're at 43% now, right? But they've only played 7 Test matches. They've got 6 to come, 3 series. Okay. They've got New Zealand and Australia at home, and then South Africa away. Look,
whitewash them all.
If they whitewash New Zealand and Australia, it's going to be tough to do. But in their own conditions, a couple of Bunstons of Gaul and all the rest of it, it'll be a similar situation to what we mentioned with Bangladesh last week. If they win 5 of 6. They could sneak into that second spot and play at Lords next year. It's very unlikely, but that's one thing that I like about the World Test Championship is that they've still got their destiny, kind of in their own hands, and it's more than just a single Test victory at the Oval. Significant as it is, Sri Lanka's 4th win ever in England, but there is that bigger picture at play as well.
Well, and the mirroring, the first one coming at the Oval way back when, and having that happen again, that was nice. Nissanka, who wasn't allowed to play Test cricket for quite a while because he had those problems with his back, and so they were confining him to white ball cricket only, coming in, making that 4th innings ton, which so few visiting players have done. Big Ange being there at the end, not out, just... being reliable and consistent. And I think almost more than the fourth innings chase, I enjoyed the third innings knockover of England, where you've got Lahiru Kumara, who has struggled so much over the years, so many injuries, which you're expecting, right? He's this big, broad-shouldered, muscular kind of bowler, and he runs up and bowls in a way that says back stressy. He bowls in a way that says side strain. It says quad. Like he just puts so much pressure on his body that it's like a Shannon Gabriel kind of type, those big, heavy, strong, fast bowlers where you expect him to be injured a lot of the time, and he is a lot of the time. And he's bloody quick when he gets it right, and he also gets tap when he's bloody quick a lot of the time because he's not necessarily that accurate. You see players get hold of him in white ball cricket, and so for him to have a moment where it comes together, and he takes 4 for Vishwa Fernando, who didn't quite debut in Canberra in that game where they got absolutely pants, but that was very early in his career in that inexperienced attack, and then he goes to South Africa and is part of that team that beat South Africa in 2019.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I can barely think of a bigger turnaround in tests ever than that Sri Lankan side that was annihilated in Australia and was so condescended to and so described by Australian media as just basically a complete waste of time that they'd even come out there. And only within a few weeks they were beating South Africa in South Africa when South Africa had a great pace attack, and they took them down across 2 tests as well, not just a fluke. So he's part of that. You put all that together. I don't know. I'm really pleased for them because there was that same condescension, particularly after the second test. They were competitive in the first, not so much in the second, but came back to win it in the third.
Yeah, it's a great story that they've had the resilience there because they were fucking abject at different points through the series with the bat, especially the top order.
Yeah.
In other parts of interest in relation to the World Test Championship, now South Africa have 2 matches against Bangladesh in Bangladesh coming up, but they're not sold on going there. Owing to the but who it might hurt, I was pondering this. If it doesn't happen, those test matches, they won't be forfeited to Bangladesh necessarily, will they, for points? I don't think that's the way it works. I think there's NA. Well, remember in 2021 when Australia didn't go to South Africa, I don't think Australia gave those. I think the points just don't count. That is to say, there'll be no points allocated. There'll be 0 out of 0 as opposed to 0 out of 12.
Testing my memory here, but when South Africa didn't come to Australia, they forfeited for the one-dayers because of the SA20. They forfeited the points.
That's true.
They were forfeits as far as the qualifying was concerned.
That's true. And I suppose the Australia one was COVID related, which might have had some leeway there.
Yeah. So it's whether the ICC accepts that you have a good excuse for not going, and South Africa's excuse for not coming to Australia was commercial. Now, you can cite safety concerns, and that might be allowed, but it depends whether I think the ICC agrees that it's actually too dangerous to tour somewhere.
Well, there's 2 sides of it then, isn't there? If that adjudication goes the way of Bangladesh and they get 24 extra WTC points,
boys.
They're well and truly
see you at Lord's.
They are up and about. But if they don't, and let's say it's, I don't know, it's 0 out of 0, then they don't have the chance to improve their percentage from 45. And
I suppose it's shared. It could be shared at 50%.
But that doesn't help them either because it's a percentage of available points.
Right.
So if they got 6 out of 12 for a draw or whatever it is for a draw, that would actually be a net loss to them where they need to be at the moment. So anyway, just one to watch on that front. From the other thing, and this is not World Test Championship, Geoff. No. This is just Test cricket that's being played adjacent to it.
Extra. Sidebar Test cricket.
Sidebar Test cricket.
Collard Greens Test cricket.
That's it. And Afghanistan hosting New Zealand for the first time. Now, this is a funny old one, isn't it? Greater Noida is the venue. It was set to become in the past tense, the 124th Test venue. Something we always enjoy, new Test grounds. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. Up in Uttar Pradesh, up north, way up north. Heaps of demand. Day one was sold out, the whole bit. But remembering that Afghanistan have played their home, their quotes, Test matches in India, so it's not unusual for them to be playing Test cricket in India. But it was so shambolic after some wet weather that they've had to call the Test match off after 2 days. Saw pictures of them taking turf from the nets, cutting that up and placing it on the outfield where they felt the outfield wouldn't recover from the rain. Saw shots of electric fans being used with extension cable after extension cable to try and dry the turf beneath it. It didn't feel or look right at all. And they've called it after just 2 days, not a ball bowled obviously. What an incredibly disappointing outcome there. And I think if this were there should be an inquiry. There should be a review. You can't be having a test match scheduled at a ground that isn't able to
get rained on
before a test is called off after 2 days. That's no good. That's not right. Now, of course, there won't be for the obvious reasons, but that should come under more scrutiny, because that's both New Zealand and Afghanistan have been badly let down there. And for New Zealand, like attempting to do the right thing, right, playing a test against Afghanistan, you don't see other full members queuing up to play Afghanistan and Ireland.
No,
I mean there's been a few this year, but not many.
The Afghanistan Ireland tests in the UAE, were they Afghanistan hosted?
They were. They were played at the back on the. It's not the main ground at Abu Dhabi. It's the other one. Yeah, it's got a name.
Electric Boogaloo.
It's called like Providence Ground or something like that.
We watched Australia play the UAE there. No, I did in 2018.
Oh, right.
After you went home.
They played a game on the background at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, they played the UAE team in the warm-up to their Pakistan T20s.
Yes.
They played twice maybe even out there on that. It's quite a nice sort of... it's like a park ground out the back, no seating around it or whatever it was.
Well, maybe that's what Afghanistan should be doing. They should be saying that they don't want to play their games in India because they can't trust the facilities.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of good grounds they could be playing at.
Yeah, unless they're playing at an established ground. Yeah. Like this seems to be like too smart by half, playing at a new ground, and they've paid the price for it.
Yeah, it's an odd one, and it's, I don't know, there are all of the tensions and discomfort that we've talked about with supporting Afghanistan cricket at a time when the Taliban are getting worse and worse. It seems like week by week there are more restrictions and more joylessness and more stifling of life going on in that place, and I think it's getting harder and harder to make the argument that there can be a distinction between national sporting teams representing that country and the government that leads that country that's so tangled up with the cricket board in that country.
Geoff, before we go to a break, and we've got lots to sink our teeth into in segment 2, a word for Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City, specifically this. As I scroll down the dock, this word.
Several words.
The English Test summer is over.
Done.
But not just that. It looks like the English summer is over as well. That's true. I've got a hoodie on at the moment, and it's an especially grotty start to September. I'm always banging on about the fact that October should be a cricket month in this country. Well, it's hard to make that argument when at the moment in September it's filthy. Anyway, goodbye to sunny days, balmy evenings in beer gardens, and hello to grey, rainy days and furiously pressing timed heater buttons in beer gardens. And if you're looking for somewhere fun to spend a gloomy day, look no further than Gravity Max, London's ultimate urban theme park. I've been there. That's where I went with a few of our Final Word listeners to go go-karting. Race your mates on the e-karts. That's what we did. Beat your mates on the arcade games. And sing with your mates at The Voice karaoke booths. There's also the Heineken Sports Bar, Hyperfloor, Street Golf, and immersive game boxes. And you know who you can do it with all, as I stumble over my words, your mates.
Your mates.
Your mates. If that's not elite mateship, I don't know what is. There's a bunch of amazing offers on at the moment, so don't miss out on a great day out. Westfield, Stratford City, get around it. Mentioned...
what's a game box? What's an immersive game box?
I don't know. What I do know is that one of our Final Word 11 teammates, Tom Stewart, who was with us at Gravity Max a few weeks ago, he said he went back there. He went back for a second go. So he loved it so much, he returned with his family. Great day out. If that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
If Tom Stewart's willing to do it, then anybody should do it. Any of the Tom Stewarts, frankly. Any of the many Tom Stewarts who have been mentioned on this show.
All right, time for a break. Back in a sec.